Hi, welcome or welcome back. My name is Yu Wing. You can call me Yu Win or Win, and I'm happy that we are together whenever and wherever you are tuning in. This video is one in my 90-day challenge series, and I have been working on speaking my truth and sharing my story. So, if this is something that you've been working on or something that you've been wanting to and kind of keeping it under wraps or maybe putting other things ahead of it, I hope this is a sign and a confirmation for you to take a step in any direction, in any form, for you to be able to experience what it's like. I like to start each one of these videos sharing a practice. So this one is, I was like, oh, I haven't thought to share this, I don't believe. So it's multi layered because of the, I guess, time frames in which I've come across the information. So I had a friend maybe 3 or 4 years ago who was using the app Noom. I think it's Noom, to help with weight. And I don't know exactly what the program's for, but we met shortly after she had been using it. And she was like, oh, I'm going to order some broccoli before we order our hamburger, bottomless french fries. And that's supposed to help. And so, sort of talking about this idea of like green foods versus yellow foods versus red foods, and that you don't have to stop eating anything because that makes it a lot harder. But that you're trying to make sure you fill your body with nutritious foods, nutrition dense foods before you get to some of the other things, right? So in my mind, it was like a an order of operations thing. Whatever I'm going to eat, I'm going to see if I can have vegetables or like fruit before I eat the meal. Okay, so I'd been doing that for maybe I did that. That was probably a summer. So it was a summer, and then maybe by the fall, I'd noticed that my weight shifted, and it was sort of like being able to shed my COVID 15 that I added. Okay, so I've been continuing that and been able to keep the same weight for the last few years. So I was like, okay, like I appreciate this. And so recently, the second layer of this um, is I was watching a video from, I think, the glucose goddess. Um, I believe her first name is Jessie Inchauspe. I'll leave the video in the notes. But I was watching a video, something that showed up, and they were sharing from her work, her research. Um, there was also an order of operations to reduce or curb glucose spikes. And so, one of the things they were explaining, or what I understood, is that when you have glucose spikes, it leads to cravings. And um, then filling those cravings with, something sweet, something chocolatey, then creates more glucose spikes. And so uh, I understood, picked up to eat my vegetables first, to eat fats and proteins next, and then carbs and or sugar afterwards. So if it's possible, right? If like sometimes dishes have everything mixed up, so it's hard to separate. But whenever you can, right? So I was like, okay, let me try this. So trying to eat my vegetables first, and then if there's like an avocado, if there's fish, if there's chicken, if there's beef, if there's if there are eggs, right? So eating that, and then if there's bread or rice or some other carb, and then sugar. And so they were also saying never to eat something sugary or dessert alone on an empty stomach. But if you've eaten all the other things, to have dessert is much better and it keeps those glucose spikes from happening. So I've probably been trying that for like the last week or week and a half, too. And I actually have noticed that um, I'm not craving like sugar. I'm not craving it like in the middle of the day when my glucose levels are low. So I just wanted to share that it's something that I've noticed works for me, at least the part where I'm eating something nutrient dense first. So if you can get a side salad, if you can have like broccoli or um, asparagus or something, right? To have that first. And then to have the meal, if you can sort of divvy it up by fats and proteins and carbs and sugars. So that's sort of where I'm at, and just something to offer you in case it's something that might be helpful. Okay, so for today's video, I wanted to talk about um, I got a text message from one of my juniors, and I had sent her a voice memo. I think I was just updating her on some of the things that were going on. And I'd probably said something about like my last session in therapy last week, a couple days ago. So, one of the really beautiful things that she sent back to me was something I was like, oh, I need to I need to write that down. I need to record that. And I was like, well, I'm going to share it first here in the case that it supports you and or helps with whatever's going on. Okay. So she said, you are worthy and allowed to have wants and needs. It's okay to ask for what you want and need. It's okay to do that without requiring others to agree, want the same thing, or even understand you. Your wants don't need consensus to be valid. Honoring what you want doesn't mean you're demanding anything from anyone. It's just you being honest with yourself. And I was just like, whoa, that was super helpful, right? Because part of the reason, as a young person, um, part of the reason why I learned to stop expressing myself was because I didn't feel like what I said was heard, acknowledged, like anybody had the capacity for it, right? So then I just stopped expressing it because I was needing certain outcomes, having expectations about, if I'm feeling this way and I say it, like it doesn't feel good to be dismissed. So then I learned, like, okay, let's just not do it. So this is very important for me to read and to understand and to be able to connect previous lessons to this around like I guess maybe this idea that emotions, needs, and wants are like an entity or a being in and of itself. And that they need to be heard, they need to be shared, they need to exist. Like maybe they need to be birthed. And so in my mind, the blockages have been around other things, right? Like, well, how do I have my needs met? Um, how do I hold space for my emotions? Like, and that's still this ongoing journey of like how I'm allowing myself to acknowledge even those things for myself. And so I guess what I'm taking away right now is that I can hold space for these entities, these beings, and from there figure out what I'm going to do with them. I think what I've done is deny, block, hide them all because I'm afraid what happens if I acknowledge them. So it's a different way of approaching this, which I'm really appreciating. And I'm also sitting with like, the idea that everything is energy and like everything sort of needs to flow. So, and I always come back to water, right? So water is meant to flow, it's meant to move, it's meant to spread. And so I may have an emotion and its nature is to move and spread. And I can decide, am I going to write that in a journal? Am I going to record a voice memo? Am I going to say it out loud? And I'll, be able to discern as I'm able to stay regulated and centered in the acknowledgement of these thoughts, emotions, needs, wants. So I'm super excited. And it felt like a really helpful shift so that I could let things flow. And then I did have a conversation with another junior, sort of kind of expressing the idea around, you know, everything sort of might have this nature of energy and some of these things need to flow in different ways. And she's like, wow, what would our world be like if everyone just allowed their emotions to flow or their wants to flow? And I think she seemed to be expressing some like fear of like overwhelm or like what would it be like. And that is an interesting point, but I also think that with experience and wisdom and application, we can sort of determine what form that expression or flow might be. Um, like if I'm in a work setting or professional setting, like what kinds of expression can I choose from versus or flow, what kind of flow can I choose from versus like if I'm alone, if I'm in like a safe space, if I'm with someone that I trust. So I'm sitting with that in addition to this idea of like your emotions are your emotions and your needs are your needs and they are valid in and of themselves inherently. Um, and then I like to think too, I've heard people say like, just because you have a thought doesn't mean that it's true, right? Like if we think about limiting beliefs, if we think about habits or patterns we may have inherited or that we may have heard over and over again that we adopted ourselves, right? Like they're not always like real. Just because a couple of people were like, oh, your emotions are too big doesn't mean that it's true. And so I'm also kind of sitting with that idea that my mentor had shared with me. So, yes, I'm going to stop, pause there. And my system is still working hard to prepare for my ladybug. So I am going to honor um, my needs and I'm going to go rest. So this is going to be a much shorter video. Um, yeah, I hope that wherever you are, you can take a supportive breath and tune in sometime, if not now, sometime soon, to check in and see what your system needs. And I'm very grateful that you're here witnessing me and my journey and listening to this part of my story. And in the meanwhile, please take good care and I'll talk to you later. Okay, bye bye.